transmission echoed across the stars, bouncing off satellites, relays, and orbital beacons. Every death world, from the icy caverns of Karvek, 9 to the acid rains of Varnoth Prime, received the same signal. Scrambled at first, a garbled mess of static and emergency tones, but eventually the message emerged loud and clear. A call to arms. A plea. A warning. Deathworlders, the most resilient beings in the galaxy, knew pain, war, and survival. They had evolved in environments that shredded most species to pieces. They did not flinch at radiation storms, nor blink in the face of lava-bathed landscapes or skies filled with venomous clouds. These were the apex survivors, stronger, faster, more resourceful. But even they trembled when the Xenomorph threat was named. The first planet to fall was Travex 4, a former penal colony turned agricultural hub. The last report came from a transmission tower operator named Halloran, who described shadows moving faster than the eye could track, acid burns corroding military-grade armor, and a hive mind unlike anything ever catalogued. Then came silence. Not even a distress beacon pulsed after that. Travex 4 was gone. Rumors flooded the interstellar net. Some claimed the Xenomorphs were a bioweapon gone rogue, engineered by a long-dead race with no understanding of what they had unleashed. Others believed they were ancient, older than the stars themselves, spilling through rifts in space from some godless dimension. The truth didn't matter. What mattered was their advance, and the fact that no one had stopped them. That's when the Council of Deathworlders was summoned. A rare gathering, only invoked in events of galactic consequence. Not every planet attended, for some refused to acknowledge interstellar cooperation, while others were already under siege. But those that came with grim purpose. Representatives from Earth, Dravis, Tharnox, and dozens more sat at the obsidian table deep in the hollow station, suspended in orbit around the dying red star of Journos. The room smelled of old battle armor and ozone. General Reyna Malik, commander of Earth's unified planetary militia, rose first. She looked older than her years, the result of decades facing horrors most humans only read about in deep space briefings. Her voice carried like gunfire. They are coming, and when they reach our worlds, they will not conquer. They will consume. Every organ, every drop of blood, every scream. Across the table, Grixel Cole, the Tharnox war chieftain whose planet's gravity could crush lesser species into paste, slammed a clawed hand onto the table. My people do not fear predators. But this is extinction. The murmurs around the table grew. Some called for immediate offensive strikes. Others urged retreat to fortified systems. Then the screen lit up. The image was blurry but unmistakable. A hive, towering structures built from bone and sinew. Egg sacs pulsating like diseased hearts. Warriors, sleek and black as midnight, patrolled the perimeter. One turned to the camera, no eyes, just glistening obsidian and a mouth within a mouth. "That's from Kessel Outpost Theta," Malik said. "One of our recon drones got close." It lasted 17 seconds. The video looped again and again. Each time, someone shifted uncomfortably. Then came the voice none expected. Old Commander Tress, a veteran from the dead sand wars of Zarn. She spoke slowly, her voice like rust scraping against metal. "We cannot run. They multiply too quickly. We must fight, and for the first time in galactic history, we must fight together." There was silence, then nods. Agreement. A covenant forged in fear, desperation, and defiance. Thus began the Deathworlder Alliance. Within weeks, the forge factories of Dravis were ablaze with activity. Combat exosuits capable of withstanding plasma cannons were upgraded with acid-resistant plating. Earth deployed its orbital shipyards to produce dreadnoughts equipped with flamethrower batteries, designed specifically to incinerate xenomorph nests. The amphibian warriors of Calvoro Prime lent their stealth capabilities, mapping out potential hives using sonar drones. Even the fiercely independent Vargari clans contributed their berserker units, warriors who went into battle unarmed, using tooth and claw as weapons. But even with all their might, the first engagements were disastrous. At Rythus Outpost, A combined force of 8,000 soldiers was decimated in 4 hours. The hive had spread underground, beneath rock and ice, and emerged beneath the troops like a tidal wave of fangs. No survivors. At Jelvaker Moonbase, the Xenomorphs demonstrated a horrifying new tactic, infecting host species not just with embryos, but with engineered spores that converted entire living populations into gestating husks. It became clear the Xenomorphs were learning. The Deathworlders adapted. They had to. Biological resistance programs were implemented. Soldiers were equipped with anti-infestation injectors that would kill them instantly if impregnated, brutal, but necessary. Entire regiments were trained in hive infiltration, using napalm, plasma blades, and sonic disruptors. Tactical nukes were authorized for planetary sterilization missions. Still, losses mounted. Every battle was a bloodbath. But with every engagement, the Deathworlders bought time. Time to learn. Time to evolve. Time to unite. Then came the turning point. A small team from Earth's Ghost Division, led by Commander Idris Lane, recovered a juvenile queen specimen from the ruins of Anshar Colony. Against protocol, they brought it to Hollow Station for study. The research was led by exobiologist Vela Soren, a hybrid human Dravian whose mind was as sharp as a plasma scalpel. What she discovered changed the war. The Xenomorphs communicated via a type of phenomenal hive link, nonverbal, chemically complex, and fast. But more importantly, they were vulnerable to a specific neuroinhibitor found in the flora of Gralith-7. The compound, when synthesized and deployed as an aerosol, disrupted the Xenomorphs' command signals. It didn't kill them, but it blinded their collective consciousness, made them disorganized, slower, sloppy. A plan was formed. The Deathworlders launched Operation Severance, a coordinated assault on a massive hive world known as Charzek. The mission: deploy the inhibitor gas deep within the Queen's nesting chamber. If successful, the hive would implode on itself, its soldiers turning on each other in confusion. The mission was a suicide run. 10,000 volunteered. Only 3 made it to the chamber. What followed was recorded by an auto-drone that survived the chaos. The video showed twisted tunnels, dripping with viscera. Walls that breathed. Screams. So many screams. The final footage was of a shadow rising behind the Queen, blacker than space, crowned with jagged protrusions, its inner mouth snapping in anticipation. Then a flash as the inhibitor was released. The Queen shrieked. The hive shuddered. The drone went dark. Charzek was silent after that. It was the first real victory. From that point, the war shifted. Each planet liberated came at tremendous cost, but the momentum grew. Hive after hive was purged. The Xenomorphs, once thought unstoppable, faltered. They adapted again: faster maturation, thicker armor, even hive coordination redundancy. But the Deathworlders had become more ruthless, more united. Each world sent their best. The alliance held. By year 5, only a handful of Xenomorph strongholds remained. These final bastions were the largest, buried within gas giants, asteroid fields, or beneath oceans of sulfuric acid. But the Deathworlders no longer hesitated. They struck without warning, used gravity bombs, seismic disruptors, and viral payloads designed to liquefy the enemy's neural network. It was annihilation on a scale no species had ever attempted. Some questioned the morality, whether becoming monsters to defeat monsters was just. Others reminded them of the stakes, of the billions who had died screaming, their flesh turned into breeding grounds, of the children who would never know sunlight because the hive had swallowed their worlds whole. This was not vengeance. It was survival. Finally, on the scorched plains of Duroth as wound, the last queen was cornered. Surrounded by fire and steel, she unleashed her brood in a final frenzy. But the Deathworlders stood firm. Humans with flamethrowers, Tharnok's berserkers coated in xenomorph ichor, Vargari packs howling as they tore through chitin. A wall of defiance. She fell with a scream that cracked the sky. And then silence. No more hives. No more transmissions. No more war. The Alliance, forged in desperation, held one final summit. They built a monument, not to victory, but to unity. Etched into its black stone were the names of every species who stood together. Beneath it, in stasis, lay the last xenomorph corpse, preserved not as a trophy, but as a reminder of what had been faced, of what must never rise again. Across the galaxy, planets began to rebuild. Ash turned to soil. Bunkers opened. Skies cleared. Children laughed. And for the first time in centuries, the Deathworlders allowed themselves to hope. But they did not disarm. They remembered. Because Deathworlders never forget the darkness that stalks in silence, wears a second mouth, and bleeds acid. And if it ever returns, they will be ready. United. Relentless. And utterly unafraid.